everyone, and welcome to our meeting of February 26, 2019. If you'd please stand for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Ziegler.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Beagle.
Here.
Councilmember Gatchel.
Present.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Here.
Councilmember Leader.
Here.
Councilmember Resnick.
Here.
Councilmember Smiley.
Here.
Quorum present.
Okay, thank you. Any changes to the agenda? Mr. Brown?
Mayor, I have no changes to the agenda at this time.
Okay, anybody here? I'd like to add new business number 9, an announcement from Councilman Kennedy. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the regular city council meeting of February 12th, 2019. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Any changes to the, or anything anybody wants to bring to the attention of the clerk on these, or any comments or changes? Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. There is nothing under correspondence this evening, which takes us to the first call to the public. I'll read the rules for public speaking. The public shall address the council during the call to the public, which shall be included on the agenda immediately after correspondence and again immediately after new business. The first call to the public immediately after correspondence shall be limited to agenda items only. A person shall not address the council in excess of 5 minutes unless the time is extended by a majority of the council present, and persons wishing to address the council shall identify themselves and their place of residence and shall state their reasons for addressing the council, and all comments by the public shall be made directly to the council. Anybody wishing to speak to the council this evening or address the council this evening on any agenda items? Seeing no one, I will close the first call to the public. City managers' reports. We have, the first one is the departmental reports of January 2019. Anybody have any questions or comments or items they want to discuss? Second is the quarterly budget and investment report, October 1st, 2018 through December 31st, 2018. Anybody have any comments, questions? Okay. Next item is the consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the council member so requests, in which event the items will be removed from the consent agenda and added to the regular agenda at the end of unfinished or new business. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
I have motion and support. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda is approved. Thank you. There is no unfinished business, which takes us to new business. New business number 1 is recommendation to introduce an ordinance to amend the Wixom Code of Ordinances, Title 9, Public Peace and Welfare, Chapter 9.32, to add sections 9.32.051 and 9.320.052 to prohibit marijuana establishments and provide penalties for violations of the ordinance respectively. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Discussion. Mr. Gatchel.
Thank you. So I understand this is just for the introduction, but I wanted to bring up a few points since at the next meeting this should be coming up for the formal yes or no vote. And I shared a few of these with the city manager. One of them looks like it was already partially reflected in section 4 of the violations and penalties. Initially that had said misdemeanor of $500 and or 90 days in jail. And now it reads a fine of not more than $500, civil infraction. I know the the state law, I believe, is a civil infraction of not more than 100. So I just wasn't sure, I guess, under what ability we're allowed to go above that with our own fine, or in addition to that.
Is that a question for me?
Yeah,
Okay.
potentially.
Yeah, okay, and I understand that. It's interesting, if you look at the section dealing with the fine in the actual statute, it's in the section that deals with the city actually adopting an ordinance that will permit the establishments. So it's kind of unclear to me right now what the limitation would be if you're opting out. Because, for example, if you get to the zoning amendment, which would also opt out, under the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, that's a misdemeanor if you violate the zoning ordinance. So that looks, we'll look at that a little bit further, but I'm not sure that that limitation applies if you're opting out.
Okay. One of the other things, because what I did when we received this is I went back and looked at what we already have on the books in terms of the ordinance and then the state law as it was passed as well. There seems to be a lot in our current ordinance under paraphernalia that deals with the like planting, manufacturing kind of equipment. And even though if we take the steps to prohibit establishments, you're still allowed to grow at home. So to me, I don't know how you amend that, but I think there needs to be a clarification that stuff used for growing marijuana isn't going to be paraphernalia at that point, as long as you're doing it in your home legally, essentially.
And I understand what you're saying. The act does define what the establishments are, which would not include what you were just talking about. But Title IX itself in our code needs some further work based upon the statute, because it still has a lot of regulations about marijuana that no longer are applicable. So I think we need to look at that title overall as well.
Okay. This just kind of seemed like something we've run into in the past where new rules pop up or lawsuits happen and we amend one thing, but we don't look at it from the whole perspective, and then a lot of it doesn't necessarily go together at times. So those, in terms of just like the actual ordinance itself or the amendments, those were my two primary concerns that I hope we can look into, I guess, before this comes up for the official vote next meeting, I would assume. Thank you.
Anybody? Mr. Leader?
Yeah, and building on Councilman Gottschall's points, with the violations that we have in there, is can we do anything more than the civil infraction? I mean, I saw that we took out the misdemeanor, but is there anything to do, because you can have multiple offenses
Correct.
without, and I think there needs to be either a declaration of public nuisance or some sort of teeth to kick out the establishment if one were to open in violation of the ordinance.
And that's something too that we would, if you choose to opt out, with the accompanying zoning ordinance amendment, that would be a nuisance per se.
Okay,
under
now
the
is,
law, so-
is,
And a misdemeanor.
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
No, and a misdemeanor on
Yeah.
the zoning misdemeanor.
Now, is Turbeek still, the City of Wyoming versus Turbeek still the zoning precedent
Well,
related?
actually, there's a case pending in the Michigan Supreme Court right now that's really going to clarify things as to what you can or can't regulate. Because that case actually came out basically saying the city couldn't regulate anything.
Right.
Right. So, and like I said, that's up there, we're watching it, we've actually had filed one of the amicus briefs that are before the court. So we don't really have a definitive statement on some of those things yet. And of course, that's all under just the first Medical Marijuana Act.
Right, no, and that's where I guess with still with the decriminalization, the new, medical marijuanas, or the expansion, I guess this is more of an expansion, but, so if Turbeek is still in existence, how does opting out get us around it if it doesn't make any clarification? Because under this under the new thing that was passed last year, now we're dealing with commercialization of everything, and we're gonna have new arguments related to it.
Well, Turbeck was really only related to the initial Medical Marijuana Act.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're into recreational marijuana, which is a whole different ballgame. So just like we're still trying to get a final decision on what the first statute means, we really don't know what the third statute means. We haven't really had any much litigation on the second statute yet. So some of those things are they're just unanswered right now. I think the way the city sits right now with what you have on the books, what we've done so far is we have recognized the right to use medical marijuana. We did that a long time ago, and we recognized somebody's right to do that in their own home, okay? We then made the second decision when the Licensing Act came out that we don't want to have these large facilities. We're not prohibiting marijuana, we're not prohibiting medical marijuana, and we don't care what you do in your own home. And now we're to the third stage, which is, do you want to opt in or opt out of these additional recreational facilities that are, they're sort of like the ones under the licensing, but those deal with medical marijuana, which is recreational. But it's the same concept. Do you want to have those type of facilities, those kind of business facilities? And if you don't, you opt out. But the city still recognizes that people can use medical marijuana in their home, and they can use recreational marijuana in their home, and consistent with the statute. So you have to, I hope you understand that. I mean, we're not saying you can't use marijuana in the city. So, but we're just zeroing in on these facilities. Do you want to take what business or commercial land you have or office land you have, and do you want to use it for this type of facility or not? That's sort of the question that's before you tonight. We said no to the medical marijuana, so you have to decide whether you say yes or no to the recreational marijuana.
Mr. Resnick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I just wanted to state where I sit on this. I think establishing this ordinance and opting out is the prudent thing to do for our community right now, as many communities have shown across Michigan. One could argue that the populace approved it in the general election. My biggest fear is LARA has, and that's a licensing and regulatory authority of the state of Michigan, has 1 year to adopt all of its rules and changes. Prohibition was lifted in 1933, and we still can't figure out the alcohol side of it through LARA. So I think there's lots going to be changing. There's a lot of work to do on this yet, legislatively as well as with LARA, and I think this is the prudent thing, and I support the ordinance.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. We have a motion and a second to introduce an ordinance to amend the Wixom Code of Ordinances, Title IX, Public Peace and Welfare, Chapter 9.32, and add sections 9.32.051 and 9.32052 to prohibit marijuana establishments and provide penalties for violation of the ordinance respectively. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Second item under new business is a recommendation to approve contract number 18-5550 between the Michigan Department of Transportation and the City of Wixom as a grant recipient on behalf of the Commerce, Walled Lake, and Wixom Trailway Management Council for the construction of the Michigan Airline Trail improvements, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign the contract. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Mr. Brown, what about?
This is just the latest step down the path of getting the Michigan Airline Trail completed with improvements in this construction season that's upcoming. We've passed a variety of actions in the past to move down that path, including supporting the TAP grant that we're working under with this contract. Approval for us to act as the recipient of that TAP grant because the council couldn't do so. It had to be an Act 51 eligible agency, so the city of Wixom volunteered to do that. And then a cost participation agreement was the last piece that I think we've done recently with action by mayor and council to codify how that was going to happen in terms of Wixom representing the council and fronting monies, if you will, on behalf of the council, and then being reimbursed by the other parties in the Trailway Council, that being Commerce Township and the City of Walled Lake. So now we've received this contract from MDOT to basically effectuate the completion of the project. It's a result of a bid that was conducted by MDOT and evaluated by MDOT. And good news to report on that front. The initial estimate of what the cost of the project was going to be was over $4 million, $4.3 million essentially. And the bids ranged much lower than that, starting at 2.8 million and moving upwards from there. But there was a variety of low bids that really point to the fact that we're going to be able to get this project, the construction of the trail, completed at a far lower cost than we had thought. There will be an impact likely on our local match that's required of us right now that sits at $294,000 under that cost participation agreement. And we do think that it will be substantially lower than that based on this lower bid, but we have to see how that works out vis-a-vis if there's any change to bid award or anything like that that comes about. We don't anticipate that there will be. So we're looking forward to experiencing some lower costs than we anticipated. And obviously, we're very excited to have the trail completed this year. It should be completed this construction season, as I said. Probably late summer, early fall is likely the time frame. So we're very excited about that, and this contract approval will move us closer to that goal. And one more thing to say on an informational front, we have a pre-construction meeting with the company that's likely to receive the bid that's taking place this week on Thursday here in Wixom. And once that happens, a very short time period after that, probably within 10 days, the contractor can begin work on the project. That probably won't be anything too exciting to begin with, but we should see some activity that will start to reflect that the trail is going to be constructed soon along the trail in Commerce, Walled Lake, and Wixom.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions, comments? Mr. Resnick?
Mr. Brown, procedurally then, is there anything that could stand in the way of the beginning of construction if this is approved tonight?
What was the question?
Procedurally, is there anything that could stand in the way of the beginning of construction?
One of the things that I don't know that I included the letter from MDOT on this, but they basically stated that we need to get this back within a certain period of time, and this action today would accomplish that. If we didn't do that, that could create a delay, but other than that, I don't really.
There's no actions by the individual communities that could cause a delay? or
And not that I'm aware of at this time, no.
Right.
As I said, we've got agreements from the communities about fronting their portion of, or paying their portion of the local matches. It's $686,000 for Commerce originally. It's $420,000 for Walled Lake and $294,000 for us. That's based on the mileage of the project in this phase of the project. That's all been codified and agreed to on multiple occasions and multiple steps, so I can't see any circumstance where any action would cause it.
Other than weather?
Right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is recommendation to amend fiscal year 2018-19 budget to reflect the financial activity related to the issuance of limited tax general obligation, pension obligation bonds, and healthcare obligation bonds. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Or?
Discussion? Marilyn, you want to say anything, or?
Yeah, all this is really to do is as a result of the bonding of the pension and OPEB liabilities that we did earlier in the fiscal year. We now have to create two departments to fund those activities, or for all of that activity to flow through. So this budget amendment creates those two departments within our general fund. It then creates the accounts necessary to flow that activity through for the bond proceeds that we received, the lump sum payments that we made out to MERS to fund that unfunded liability, and then also the bond issuance costs that we realized as a result of doing the bonding. So this is basically just allowing that activity to flow through our general operating budget. There's no change or money that came from our fund balance as a result of it, and ultimately we'll realize those savings as we move forward with the budget process.
Okay, great. Any questions, comments? All right, we have a motion and a second to amend the fiscal year 2018-19 budget to reflect the financial activity related to the issuance of limited tax, general obligation, pension obligation bond, and healthcare obligation bonds. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Next item is the approval of the fiscal year 2018-19 rollover budget amendment to accurately reflect the expenditures related to the painting of City Hall and public restroom improvements originally budgeted for fiscal 17 and 18. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Any discussion, comments? Seeing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is approval of a fiscal year 2018-19 rollover budget amendment in the amount of $707,884 to accurately reflect the remainder of expenditures related to the LDFA paving projects originally budgeted in fiscal year 2018, 17-18. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Support.
Discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion passes. Item number 6 is recommendation to Hubble, to accept Hubble Roth and Clark's proposal for engineering services for preliminary design engineering stage 1 for a connector road between West Maple and Pontiac Trail for a price not to exceed $16,520. Do I have a motion? So moved.
Support.
Discussion? Do you have any questions? Comments? Mr. Smiley?
Just, we'll get a little
You want a little
overview.
report?
Just a quick, yeah.
Sure.
That's not for me.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This proposal is to do some initial design work on a project that would extend a road on the west side of the city from West Maple heading south to Pontiac Trail. And we had, back in 2000, they had initially did some research on this and looked at it. At that point, it was not determined to be a viable option. But since then, with different traffic studies, it looks like it's a potential, and we wanted to research it further. There's a couple of different routes that are suggested right now to get there, and we want to do some soil testing, and that'll be included in this initial report. And then if we determine a go, no go, we'll need further engineering to complete that. But this is initial, just trying to do it in steps so that we don't expend money that is not desirable for the community.
Okay. Any questions? Mr. Resnick?
So far in the two proposed routes, does it look like there'll be wetlands mitigation required, remediation of?
That is still to be determined,
Still to be
depending on the routes that we were going to be taking. So
that would be looked at in the second phase of engineering?
there's some soil testing that we need to do in this phase to determine a decent route, and yeah, then we can kind of determine that. I don't know, for the if there was remediation for that. So.
Good evening, gentlemen. Nancy Fudd, Hubble Roth and Clark, and I was actually the engineer doing it 20 years ago, so I kind of remember the job. But just to correct you, Tim, so the stage 1, what we really wanted to do is kind of just pull out all the old boxes. We have cold storage. I pulled out all the old boxes. I started glancing through the stuff. And so stage 1 would be research the existing information we have. So all that information we gathered 20 years ago, look at that. Talk to some people like SEMCOG. Find out some traffic patterns, whatever information they have without doing any real traffic studies. Have some meetings with staff, make sure that we understand what their goals are for this project. And then just kind of give you guys some information and staff information based on that. So you have a little bit more information on whether you want to go forward with stage 2 of the study. And then stage 2 would be gathering some more soil borings. We do have some soil borings from not only 20 years ago, but like 15 years ago when we did the water system and the sanitary system, another, maybe that was 13 years ago. So we have some information. To answer your first question, my opinion is unless we're going to go way east and then come back to the west, I think you'll be hitting some wetlands, yes. I just don't know how deep, sometimes we don't have any geotechnical soil borings to know how deep the bad soils are. So that would be something we do in stage 2.
That used to be 20 years ago when we were looking at that. I think that was called Ladero Road. I think we were going to call it. Isn't that correct?
Landrow, correct.
Yep. And we got a project going on right now that's called Landrow, but it's a different project that's has to do down on Pontiac Trail. But I remember the studies that were done at that time. And we were hoping to have that complete and have a lot of traffic using those routes back then so that we could ease up the traffic that was coming through town. I remember those discussions, yeah. Mr. Smiley, did you have something? Did you?
Ms. Bob,
Bob,
you,
yeah.
you kind of cleared it up for me, so
Okay,
take care, thank you.
okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anybody?
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes. If you could help me out, can you explain on the stage one where you have down the easements and right-of-way, what is it they have to look at just for those kind of hours?
Let me refresh my memory here. So back in the day, we did develop quite a few easement documentation. Some of that time would be whether we are not sure how many of those were recorded. So we would do some research at the county offices, check through all the files, see what has been recorded, go through some of our old files. We may have some of the signed documents. We're not sure what was signed, what was not signed, and that's usually done by our professional surveyor or somebody in their office. So.
What would a department manager have to do with that for 10 hours, though?
He is the department manager for our survey office, so he's a professional surveyor. So, and he's about my age, and so he would be the one doing a lot of the research.
Okay, I don't care how old he is or young he is, that's not a matter. But the thing is, if it's stuff that we've already had and they're just checking to see if it's recorded, why wouldn't an associate do that or I mean a tech, senior tech type thing? I don't understand why departmental managers or associates at the higher rate would have to go check on this stuff.
Well, a lot of times, so an easement document and a right-of-way document has to be developed by a surveyor. Sometimes techs don't understand how they're written.
I thought this was, I'm sorry, if you can just hang on for a second. I thought you were saying that it was something they had to go check, that these were already done, and they had to go down to the county and verify it.
Well, there's a couple steps. So back 20 years ago, the city hired us to do a lot of easements documentations to try to get easements for the construction of the roadway and all the utilities. And we developed quite a few of these documents all along this route. So to be quite honest, I'm not exactly sure what we need to do. We have to dig back through our files. What I want to be able to do when we're all done is to say, hey, back 20 years, we got these easement, this easement, and maybe that's good enough for you guys to put a road in that corridor because we already got that easement, or maybe it's not. What I didn't want to do is say it's going to take 2 hours and then be short on that. Hopefully we won't need all these hours, but I wanted to make sure that I gave you good enough budget so that when I come back, I have a study that you guys can use to make a further decision with all the information you need. So maybe we don't need all that, I don't know.
So that'd be interesting to see what you come back with, because it sounds to me like we already paid for it 20 years ago.
Is that a question? I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry, that sounds like a statement that you made. Is that correct? That we paid for this 20 years ago to get all these easements and stuff done? And
Some of them, yeah.
wouldn't your company file those?
No, but the city's files those.
City files them after you've made them and created them.
We make them, you hire somebody else to purchase them, to work with the property owners,
Okay.
and then city records them with the county.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anybody else? Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept Hubble Roth & Clark's proposal for engineering services for preliminary design engineering stage 1 for a connector road between West Maple and Pontiac Trail for a price not to exceed $16,520. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. New business number 7, a recommendation to accept the Lindout Associates Architects AIAPC of Brighton, Michigan, proposal to bid development and construction administration services for the community center and the city hall improvements for a total not to exceed $16,320. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, maybe we'll have a presentation on this as well.
Certainly. This was actually a group group desire. We had several different projects in this building that we were looking at. One of them was the HVAC coordination, where we've been having trouble getting heat to different rooms, and we were hoping that new controlling system was going to correct that. And when we started looking at designs and specifications, we needed a little bit more expertise on that. So we reached out to Lindau, and they've actually done some other work for us, the community center in different areas. And while we were looking at that, Deanna came up with a couple other ones, and the police department with the kitchen renovations, and then also the renovations at the community center that we're working on with the front doors. So with all of that, we just tried to get this into one document with one group helping us get the bids out. And so we'll bid this out here in the next month or so, and hopefully have a contractor or multiple contractors that can do this work for us.
Okay. Anybody? Mr. Beagle?
Thanks. I understand using a architect with the HVAC system and stuff like that, but an architect for the police department kitchen, if you go to a kitchen place to get new counters, they're gonna do all that work for you. So why aren't we using their services for free? Why are we paying for those services?
It was a limited amount that we were looking for there, but we were moving some drains, and there was some electrical that we wanted to make sure fit the code. So that was the only thing.
All right, and then also in the letter from the architects, it says remodel City Hall kitchen. I don't remember us talking about that.
That, when we were doing the plans, the design plans for the architect, he's going to take a look at that. That has not been budgeted yet, you are correct. But if City Council, we will be putting that in the budget to look at and talk about. And if City Council does not want to go forward with it, that part won't be done.
Yeah, but kind of putting the cart before the horse, we're gonna pay for something, and if we say we're not gonna use it, then that's kind of wasted money,
We
isn't
get
it?
a better price wrapping all these together.
If we don't use it, it's just
Yeah,
money
but if we're
gone.
not using it.
This is a
We
not
won't
to
pay
exceed.
for it.
This is a not to exceed.
Well, I understand that, but
If he doesn't-
you're gonna, let's say you spend $20 in there to have the architect look at it, and we say no, then that's $20 wasted, right? And it's more than $20. This is what, I just don't understand why especially we're having an architect look at something when we can use and utilize a kitchen cabinet maker to do the same thing for part of the fees of redoing the
Keep
kitchen.
in mind, they also do all the bidding process, the documents, all that detailed work. So that's all taken care of within that, so that we get better prices and they have better contractors a lot of times.
I don't know, I'm having trouble with this. That seems a little excessive to me, but thank you.
Mr. Goss?
Thank you. I share the deputy mayor's concerns. I think we'd be just about the only ones to hire an architect to replace a door to a building. It said in here like redesign and replace, it's a door.
We've checked with door companies before, the whole structural design of that emergency door, right now it's inoperable. The weight of the door, it needs to be totally redesigned.
So the whole wall needs to be redesigned? Because
The
just
actual-
putting in a new door isn't going to fix any structural problem.
It's the glass door on the Pontiac Trail
Yeah.
side.
It's emergency
Yeah,
exit.
it is gonna be redesigned.
It's
The
gonna-
whole curtain wall though?
The double doors is gonna go down to a single, 36 inch,
Yep.
36 inch door, so it's ADA compliant without having a double door, because a single door is no longer compliant with ADA.
So it's a single door right now or a double?
There's a double door right now, and it needs to go to a single to have, otherwise we have to move one of the doors to a 36 inch and then one of them to like a 28 inch or something, so it needs to be designed.
Needs to be redone.
And then the height of it, right now it's, 8 foot, it's an 8 foot door. We're gonna drop that down just so that there's not as much of an opening.
Okay, you would think most people know that are installing doors to put in different supports, I guess, because it sounds like the redesign is going to be, okay, we're getting rid of one door, putting in a single door, and it's a glass wall, so you're probably adding panes of glass and other metal to support it. It doesn't like, to me, it's kind of
To
crazy.
make sure that it's stable when it's complete, we're hoping to get an architect that can sign off on that in case something happens in the future.
The doors are inoperable, and
Protect us.
they basically are not
Protect us
usable the
from
way they are
liability.
right now because of a bad design to begin with. So it's being redone from that standpoint because it was a faulty design, frankly. We
Can we
haven't
go
been
back
able to
to
use the
that
doors
engineer?
properly. How long ago?
Oh, as old as the community center.
Right, so not likely, no.
That's the point, though, is we're hoping they'll sign off on it so we can go back to them if something happens, but we can't go after the last person that designed it. Then aside from that,
The rules have changed on the ADA.
just like the kitchen design stuff and whatnot, and what's necessitating like moving drains?
Just the plumbing code and the electrical that's there.
All right.
And to draw it up, for me to draw it up, I can't draw that up.
But as the deputy mayor said, you go into most places and you say that, like my clients, for example, they hire an architect when they're going to add on to their house or do something significant. When they're going to redesign, they go to Home Depot, they go to wherever and say, here's what we're looking for. And they have planners that's their job to space plan, and here's products we have, and it's not an architect. To me, we're going overboard. So that's, especially with the City Hall kitchen, that's not something we've discussed before, so not in favor of putting any money toward that, or let alone kind of most of these projects, aside from things that are gonna save us money, like the LED lighting, which again, I don't really know how an architect necessarily plays into that, unless you're going to be installing new light boxes and covering up old ones with light panels, or with ceiling panels, but.
They do.
And we are doing some of that in-house, actually in the police department right now, we're replacing the lighting on our own with our licensed electrician. But changing locations and making sure that, those breakers are all set up right and whatnot, when someone else is doing it, they need a decision that we cannot make.
So, I mean, if we were to remove some of the funds that have been allocated here for like facilities improvements or whatever covers the city hall kitchen, items like that, I mean, you talked about the benefit of doing all of it together. Let's say the facilities improvement you have marked here is $1,300. I'm going to assume that's the kitchen here. What's the price if we say no now, talk about it at budget, and then do it later? Like, what benefit is it to us right now?
Well, from my perspective with the HVAC, that's going to require some research that they need to do, but I don't know if you
The
can answer.
facility improvements for the design for both of those kitchens.
For both the kitchens, both the kitchen and the police department.
And we won't have the architect do that if council decides to vote on it.
All right. This kind of just generally gets back to my age-old issue of spending a lot of money in here instead of like things that actually benefit a lot of residents. So that's my other main issue with all of this. Thank you.
Mr. Kennedy, you had something?
I just a question, is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Sickma, you keep talking about making sure the breakers and the panels are all set up correctly and things like that. Don't we have electrical inspectors that would be able to tell us that?
They're,
Isn't that what they do right now in commercial accounts? They go out and make sure the breakers are all set up correctly?
They look at the design and make sure it matches the design, yeah.
The inspectors verify that it's been done correctly. So they couldn't do ours? They're already on our payroll? And same thing with the plumbing and,
So that our licensed electrician, he's not a design guy, but.
but he can sit there and look at a panel and say if it's done correctly, though. He inspects commercial accounts. Didn't our inspectors inspect Menards?
Safe built it, yes.
They inspected Menards, and that's a pretty heavy-duty electrical system, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, but it was designed by an architect to begin with.
I know, but I mean, our electrical inspectors could make sure it was built and done correctly. So, and since this, you're saying is very minor, I would think that our electrical inspectors could do that. But anyway, I got a quick question here, and this is the big one here. Install a new digital temperature control system in City Hall and the Police Department. Does that mean thermostats?
It's one thermostat for multiple zones in multiple areas with boosters and.
What do you mean by boosters?
There's electrical booster, or heating boosters in different areas of the city here. Plus there's nine rooftop units that are all coordinated through this one.
But the digital control temperature system, is that just a thermostat?
It is,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm done.
Anybody else? Mr. Resnick?
Maybe just in defense of what Mr. Sickman's trying to say is that pretty much any build-out done in the city in a commercial or other space does require an architectural firm to be hired if there's going to be plumbing, electrical, any type of architectural change. I just did one of my businesses, 1,200 square foot renovation, and I had to do a full set of mechanicals, a full set of electricals, a full set of plumbing, and all I did was added a mop sink. And so it is in fact, if you're going to get the inspections and get the permits signed off, it does require an architect, and I had to hire one for that little tiny project as well. So it is required. So.
Okay. I guess the only point I would make, I wonder if this is something that has to be done, it's time sensitive to the extent that maybe you might want to, if we were to withdraw the motion in the second, if maybe you could kind of use some of the comments to maybe refine this report a little bit and the request. Does that make sense, or is there time sensitive?
I kind of sandwiched it in between, but the HVAC one is fairly time sensitive because we'd like to get it done, completed in May when it's 60 degrees, so that the air conditioning side is in effect used at that point, and neither is the heat. So if it takes a bit, a month or so to get that adjusted and working, we want to do it either now or.
On the other hand, if the motion goes down, you don't do it anyway.
Then we don't do it, and then that's fine too.
I'm willing to gamble. All right.
All right.
All right. We have a motion. Oh, I'm sorry.
So 2 weeks is going to make that much of a difference?
If it's just 2 weeks, I'm sure no.
Okay.
Well, I'll ask again. Would it make sense to
So,
maybe
we can
take a second look at this?
If you're asking the table, yeah, I was thinking cutting it out. And, yeah, we can do 2 months. I was thinking more.
Yeah. Does anybody want to withdraw the first or the motion in the second?
Since I made the motion, I will withdraw my motion.
I think I second this, so I'll withdraw that.
And this never happened.
Thank
All
you,
right.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is recommendation to waive the competitive bid process and authorize the purchase of 37 handguns, 17 holsters, and 27 magazine holders for $16,208 from Michigan Police Equipment Company of Charlotte, Michigan. I'm sorry, it sounds like we're going to war with Walled Lake or something. Hello.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. This is, yeah, it does sound like a lot, but this is our entire handgun inventory for the entire police department. The entire handgun inventory is 10 fiscal years old, all purchased in fiscal year 2008, 2009. I guess there's two main primary reasons And this request before you is consistent with the police department's 10-year capital improvement plan. And I guess there's two primary reasons that I'm coming to you with this request. The first being that the handguns, the weapons are 10 years old. And I certainly do appreciate the statement that if you take care of your firearm, there's no reason it shouldn't last a lifetime. I guess with the line of work that we do, the type of work that we do, I would hope that we would keep the weapons that we use with lethal force, that we would keep them contemporary in the event that there is some sort of mechanical malfunction. So I guess that's the primary reason to sort of assuage that issue of a possible malfunction. The second reason is that a most recent study by the Federal Bureau of Investigation Training Division has the FBI Training Division has recommended that local law enforcement go to a 9mm handgun. Currently, our patrol, our investigations, and our administrative staff carry .45 calibers. The FBI has recommended going to a 9mm for a number of reasons. The most pragmatic being the cost of the ammunition being significantly cheaper than a .40 or a .45, the other commonly used calibers in law enforcement. But the other reasons being that because it's a smaller round, the officer is capable of carrying more ammunition on his or her person. The other one being because it is a smaller round, the FBI has shown that the accuracy of even the most marginal shooter tends to increase using the 9mm handgun as opposed to a .40 or a .45. And the final reason being that in the past, I know there was concern that the 9mm did not have the, quote, stopping power of other larger calibers. The FBI has essentially referred to stopping power as being a myth, and that there's really no measurable difference between the 9mm and other larger calibers. With regard to my request that you waive the competitive bidding process, I did reach out to 4 vendors that the city currently has a relationship with in an attempt to get quotes from all 4 of them. 2 of them were unable to provide a quote simply because they were unable to provide either that number of handguns or one particular model. The other 2 that we've been very satisfied with their level of service in the past were Michigan Police Equipment and CMP Incorporated. Michigan Police Equipment was the lower of the 2 quotes, and I guess for that reason I'm requesting that you authorize this.
Mr. Beagle.
Thanks. Just kind of a quick question. How come we're getting 37 handguns but only 27 magazine holders?
Because great question, when the range officers put together their evaluation group, they selected the Springfield XD9, which fits into our current holsters. So we're able to actually use our current holsters that fit the Springfield XD45. So we just need to buy a few more.
Yeah, not the holsters though, but the magazines. We're getting 37 guns, but 27 magazines, right? The magazines are what holds the bullets that goes in. Why are we only ordering 10 less of those?
Wouldn't some of them be in the guns?
I'm sorry, Mayor?
Wouldn't some of them be in the guns?
The guns
It's
come.
been a long time.
Yeah, because the 37 weapons that we're buying, it took me a while. The 37 weapons we're buying 27 Springfields and 10 Glocks.
Oh, okay.
So the 27 magazine holsters go with the 27 Springfields.
And the ones we have fit the glove. Okay.
And the current holsters we use
Okay. Yeah. I'm
fit the if it's approved, fit the new guns, so we only need 7 of those
Yeah.
for new hires.
I was just wondering why there was the discrepancy there. That's
Took me a while, but I got there eventually.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You were talking about safety. I would think the amount of rounds that the police force put through their guns are a bit different than the general public. You guys that go for a lot of training and stuff like that. So I'm sure the wear and tear on the guns that you already have after 10 years of being fired at ranges and everything else are pretty well worn. What are we going to do with the old guns when we're done?
The Michigan Police Equipment has offered to buy back at $200 a gun the Springfields, I'm sorry, $250 per gun for trade-in on the Springfields, or $275 per gun on the Glocks.
Okay, is that figured into your calculations then? or-
It does not, no.
So it's a whole lot less net.
It could potentially be a whole lot less, yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Smiley?
Well, Mr. Kennedy took all my questions, but I got a couple little ones left over. Yeah, I did the math, and it didn't look like from our packet information that the trade-in value was being factored in, so it's, almost $10,000. So we're upgrading our gun, the police department's pistols, for more like $6,000. And
Yes.
That's great. And then, just, we're getting 37 new pistols. Is that apples to apples? We got 37 currently, and we're replacing all of them? None of them stay, or we're not adding any on? Or are we?
I believe we're adding a couple additional
Okay.
for new hires perhaps in the future.
Sure.
Or in case one goes down and we need to send it somewhere for repair, we would have a couple spares.
Okay. And then, I was gonna be funny, I'll still try. The wear and tear is from a lot of, practice and range shooting. They're not being used on the mean streets of Wixom for anything.
Thankfully, no.
Thankfully, yeah.
Yes, our officers go to the range 4 times a year, and they're put 4 times a year, and they're putting approximately 200 to 250 rounds through the barrel of that gun every time they go.
Sure, okay.
So,
Great. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Resnick?
I just had one question, maybe Marilyn could answer this. Is weapons are an allowable expense under the forfeiture fund use?
Yes, I believe they are.
yes, under federal forfeiture, any law enforcement expense.
Any law enforcement expense?
Yes, sir.
Right, okay. I don't know if, we think about that at budget time, because right now, we show it coming out of the capital budget, right? And I thought there was like $13,000 in the forfeiture fund?
That's correct, Councilman Resnick. I was hoping to perhaps use some of the federal forfeiture money for rifles.
Right.
Because our rifle inventory is also aging as well.
All right, okay.
But
thanks.
when we planned for the 10-year capital, we did put the weaponry in the 10-year capital plan.
Okay. Yeah, and I recall from my days in law enforcement that even though you go to the range just a couple times a year, at least in those days, the guns are handled every day because you put them on, you take them off, and store it away every night when you go home, and so yeah, it's good to have a change of weaponry every now and then, and I'm glad to hear we're not going to war. So I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Last item under new business. Mr. Kennedy has asked to make an announcement, so I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It was with some regret that I say that I will be having to resign from City Council, effective this be my last meeting. My career with the federal government, I've got a new job, and it will be taking me between Washington, D.C. and the great state of Nebraska. So I wish it could have been something warmer like Florida, but Nebraska was the one who decided to pick me up. I've had a lot of good times here working with everybody, and one of my favorite things was the Rails to Trails program. I was able to help bring in the $3.75 million grant for that, and so I'm looking forward to, in fact, it's great that we're almost getting down to the construction of it. I'll get a chance to see that. I didn't know if that would happen in my lifetime, but thank you for everybody for helping push it along. And like I said, I wish you all the best of luck, and I know you, all the guys up here and the new, whoever they get for new, will keep the city of Wixom moving forward. Again, it's still a great place to live. I'll be living here, but just basically on the weekends at this point. So thank you very much.
Thank you. we were tipped off with that and with that information, and the council members decided to, and the administration has drawn up this proclamation that we'd like to give to you, and I'm going to present it to you. Why don't we go down there like we normally do? Have a. Oh, great. Whoa. All right. So a proclamation. Whereas Nick Kennedy has been a resident of the city of Wixom for 31 years, and whereas Nick Kennedy was appointed to the City of Wixom Planning Commission on July 22nd, 2008, and whereas Nick Kennedy was reappointed to the City of Wixom Planning Commission on June 23rd, 2009, and whereas Nick Kennedy was reappointed to the City of Wixom Planning Commission on July 24th, 2012, and whereas Nick Kennedy was elected to the Wixom City Council on in November 2013, and whereas Nick Kennedy was reelected to the Wixom City Council on in November of 2017, and whereas Nick Kennedy has resigned from the Wixom City Council on February 26, 2019, to serve the public in another capacity. Now, therefore, Mayor Richard Ziegler and the City of Council of the City of Wixom hereby express sincere appreciation to Nick Kennedy, and that this proclamation serves to honor, tribute, and gratitude for years of service to the citizens of the Wixom, City of Wixom. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And maybe we can get a frame for that. I mean, that's kind of.
We can get a fancy frame.
You know, if I could do one more thing, if I could just have all you guys come up and get one more picture with all of you, I'd appreciate it. Like, you know, we'd never do that, except for the, official ones.
Fatty knees up.
That's how I remember.
Maybe we'll get the spinal count. All right.
Anything else you want while we're?
No.
Okay. I'll catch you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the second call to the public. I've read the rules to public speaking, about public speaking before, so anybody like to come and address the public this evening?
Vance McCormick, I live at 2098 Hopkins. Everybody here knows me. I just wanted to, as the president also of our subdivision, I wanted to personally thank the DPW for the outstanding cleaning of our streets, assaulting. One night I was out at 11:30, and one of the guys I knew doing the plowing had worked all day long and was right back out there again at 11:30 at night. And they're shorthanded. So they did an outstanding job. I'd also like to thank the police department. We had quite a few little situations in our subdivision, and they have been there taking care of business, and that's what makes it really a great city to live in. But I've noticed in all of my travels and businesses that I've had made me successful, it wasn't me or it wasn't my partner. We could go out and get all the insurance work we wanted, but it was my employees. My employees made the customer feel good. Our closing rate went from 7 to 9 people that we called on immediately went with us because of the people they had talked to. This city has very, very lucky. They have the most outstanding employees out there. I was very active in Southfield, and they were okay. But I don't care what you need, from the very top. If I need something for the subdivision, I can go to the city manager and talk to him. And all the way down through, the people break their back, hot, cold, to be here to serve. And I'll tell you, I wish I'd have had 20 people like that when I first started out. So I just know when you get up at the top, sometimes we forget, but they're outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Not going to get any argument out of us.
No.
Very proud of our employees. Anybody else? I'll close the second call to the public. City manager's comments. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just had some work anniversaries there that were reflected in the report, as well as various things on the dates to remember. Beyond that, I just wanted to say I enjoyed my opportunity to work with Councilman Kennedy. Wish him all the best in his new opportunity with Congressman Fortenberry, and all the other exciting stuff that's going on in his life. Wish him all the best, and appreciate his service to the city of Wixom. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda are the council comments. Mr. Gatchel.
Thank you. So I wanted to thank Nick for his service and wish him well. I know you've been on council for a while and the planning commission before that, having served with my father there. So you've been very active in the city for a long time, helped shape the city into what it's becoming now as we continue to grow. So I definitely appreciate all the work you've done for the city. I'm sorry we didn't have cake for you, but you got to see all of your favorite people and ask the easy questions. So it's a good trade-off. And then just setting that aside, thinking down the road for obviously vacancy, things next meeting with the marijuana ordinance. Hopefully we can have kind of my concerns addressed in terms of clarifying what we have on. I would actually prefer if the entire Title IX can be looked at. That way we're not inserting one bit of information into things it's not going to work with cohesively, if that is ratified. And then also a timeline. I think the gist of our discussion a few meetings ago was that at this point people would be open to application process for vacancy. So hopefully something for us to look at and go over and give us a path forward. But again, thank you for all your service over the years. And I wish you the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Resnick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also like to wish Nick well on his new endeavor, and you're not going to become a cornhusker now, are you? Wish you well, and thank you for your service, your long service to the city of Wixom. Also, just to build on something that Mr. McCormick mentioned there, looking at the work anniversaries that Mr. Brown publishes every couple of weeks. If you look at the longevity, Jay Westervelt, right, 28 years, Melissa Harrison, 23 years, and on, the longevity, if people like what they're doing, they're going to stay. And I think it is a great community, and I ditto everything you said, Mr. McCormick. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leader.
Also wanted to thank Nick for his service. It's been fun the short time that I've had the opportunity to work with you, and we'll miss you. It's not going to be the same without you.
Deputy Mayor Beagle.
Thank you. I just want to thank everybody for their work anniversaries too. Like we said, we have 5 employees celebrating work anniversaries now, and they range from 1 year to 28 years, and we appreciate their service to the city. And I just want to thank Nick for his service to the city too, and wish him the best on all his future endeavors. Thanks.
Mr. Smiley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I like all the talk about the, the city employees. We are blessed with some fantastic ones. And we have a new one. Welcome, new city staff member Anna Kulis Rosenthal, new executive secretary. Forgive me, I wasn't here last meeting. If anybody said anything then that time. I think she started today or yesterday? Yesterday? So welcome aboard. All right, now on to the big news of the day here. As we all know, this is Councilman Nick Kennedy's last meeting as he is leaving us to start another phase of his career as a consultant for U.S. Representative Jeff Fortenberry of Nebraska. I love Nebraska. Nebraska is beautiful. I'd like to use this opportunity to express the city of Wixom's profound gratitude for his hard work serving a community that we all love. Councilman Kennedy is a remarkable colleague and friend who has spent the past 6 years serving on this council. The roles that he has played has made a big difference in this community, especially when it comes to meeting and often exceeding the goals that we are tasked with by our residents. He is active, most of the time cheerful, industrious, honest, reliable, persistent, resourceful, talented, and of course, loyal. These are just a few of the positive qualities and personality traits that describe Nick. For decades, though, Councilman Kennedy has also served this city and its surrounding neighbors in several other capacities. He developed and built a business from the ground up. He was a volunteer mounted policeman, a scoutmaster, a volunteer for Oakland County's Rebuilding Together program, helping repair homes for the elderly. He's received several military service awards recognizing his service and assistance to our armed forces. He was once named Lakes Area Chamber of Commerce Citizen of the Year. He was recently the district representative for U.S. Congressman Dave Trott. And as part of that role, he was responsible for coordinating U.S. Military Academy recommendations and nominations on behalf of the congressman. And I know he loved that role especially. Nick, we'll miss your valuable contributions. I am proud to have called you a friend and colleague. You are an achiever who has worked hard and tirelessly to deliver leadership in Wixom and the surrounding communities. Your contributions toward our shared success will stay in our hearts forever. Certainly, you have met and surpassed expectations. Your dedicated support and creative mind made sure of this. Although your leaving makes many of us sad, the memories of your service will be remembered always. With a grateful heart, I say thank you for making this job interesting and for giving so much of your immense skill and deep personal dedication to everyone around you. I salute you, Nick, for his service to our community and wish him good luck and all the best in his new position. May you find it rewarding and enjoyable. God bless you, Nick. Thanks for everything.
Mr. Kennedy.
I have no comment after that.
Come on.
I don't know where he got all the information.
All right. Well, and I got a couple things to say. Well, this isn't a roast, is it? No, we'll miss you, Nick. You've done a great job. We appreciate your service, and good luck with everything that you have to look forward to, and good working with you. Thanks for your service. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Go home.